Today was one of those days that you learn about a brand that you know is going to win. Amy was awesome, and P.volve is going to rock it. During the episode, we talked about the process that Pvolve went through to navigate the pandemic, what Amy has learned about managing a company through hyper growth, how Pvolve has embraced their trainers as influencers for the brand. It's a good one, guys. Remember, if you like the show, be a friend, tell a friend, and subscribe. Also, if you have any dream guests, tell us who they are, and we'll do our best to go and get them. Thanks, everyone.
Influencers, inspiration, and Instagram. This is Earned by Tribe Dynamics. Here's Conor Begley.
Welcome to Earned, everybody. Today, we are going to learn from the head of marketing at one of the top startups to work for in the world, as well as one of the fastest growing home fitness brands. Welcome to the show, Amy.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. And, just to give a little bit of background so people have context on how impressive what you have accomplished at Pvolve is. You guys have grown, at least from what was published, revenue is up 154% in 2020. You were listed as a top 50 startup by LinkedIn, and there were some big names on that list.
Yeah.
And you guys were one of the earliest movers in the kind of virtual hybrid home in-person workout. You did it before it was cool. So super impressive there. And then you were in nonprofit sector for 7 years in executive roles and, on the executive side from both an agency and a marketing perspective on the pharmaceutical side. So really excited to learn from you today. I think it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive in. I can't wait.
Well, let's start with that growth, right? So that's a lot of growth in a single year. And obviously, we all saw the surge in the public markets for companies like Peloton and otherwise. Now, obviously, things have slowed down a little bit. You can't maintain that forever, at least for Peloton specifically.
Right.
So talk to me about kind of what it was like during that time and then how things have changed since then. Would love to hear about that period for you. It's just such a fascinating topic for me.
Yeah, and the number you mentioned was, by August of 2020. Since then, year to date, we've experienced 100% growth in our subscribers as
Whoa.
well. Yeah, so revenue and subscribers. So it's really exciting to kind of stay on that trajectory. Double growth is all you can kind of, aim for. And, the pandemic was such an amazingly scary time for so many people. But like you said, we were already in that home fitness space. We're a hybrid model.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we were built to be really, really nimble, which is, fortunate because we had to make a very mission-driven decision of the world was in complete turmoil. And of course we have a business to run, but we also felt an obligation to people that we knew were struggling at home to help them move, So we quickly, pivoted, kind of our entire business model. The four of us, our kind of founding business executive team was actually out in Los Angeles when the real kind of pandemic shutdown started.
Yeah.
We raced to the LA airport, flew back into different cities, so we were all on this 4-hour flight. And during those 4 hours, through the power of the internet, on the airplane, we pivoted our entire strategy because we knew what was coming. So within, a couple days of everything shutting down, we had changed our trial from a 14-day free trial to a 30-day free trial. We launched live virtual studios, and we immediately sent all equipment to our trainers at home and started free Instagram live workouts, at a minimum 3 times a day. So It was a massive change. And because we were a startup, we were super nimble. So, when you kind of saw us go to market, it was within 48 hours that our business had changed.
That's pretty quick. That's a lot faster than we did. I think we pivoted within 45 days, not quite 48 hours, but no, that's super cool. And, obviously I would imagine that, the trainers appreciate it because it was an opportunity for them to stay involved and continue to contribute. And actually one of the things, this is supposed to be a little bit later on, but one of the things that's interesting about those trainers is I've noticed that, a lot of the trainers for like Peloton are starting to become influencers and celebrities in and of themselves. Is that something that you guys are seeing with your trainers, where like now, because the platform of Pvolve is growing, it's helping them build their own reputation and book of business and all those kinds of things?
Absolutely. I mean, for us, our trainers are everything, right? You have to go through massive amounts of training. So P.volve is grounded in functional training, functional movement, and so what that means to the average person is we're meant to create stronger stability, mobility, and performance. So everything, we're resistance-based. You're going to get an intense workout, but you're not going to hurt yourself. And everything that Pvolve is designed to do is to make your everyday life better. So from posture, standing, sitting, picking up your child, working at a desk, that's the power of functional movement, is working with your body to allow it to perform at its best level. So because of that, our trainers go through massive amounts of training, over 100 hours, different certifications, and we also have a clinical advisory board where we have a doctor of physical therapy and physiology and OBGYN there that is co-creating our content with our trainers. So
Cool.
Our trainers are influencers in themselves, but I think out of just being, and I'm not downplaying any, fitness influencer out there, but outside of just being this great, motivational kind of speaker in a true influencer sense, they're educators and they're changing people's lives. And I think that they're becoming influencers more from our customers saying like, I made it through my postpartum journey because of, Maeve, a P.volve trainer who helped me strengthen my pelvic floor, which changed my entire life. So when we think about influencers and our trainers, we definitely think they're getting that level of visibility, but they're getting it more because they're educating than just being a dynamic personality, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think it's one of the bigger misconceptions about that word, right? I kind of use it fairly loosely, but if you were to look at the people that actually get to prominence, generally, now, of course, there are the people that are celebrities because they're celebrities, right? But generally what you find is people get to that level of recognition because of their expertise on a particular topic, right?
Totally.
Whether it's them being like an expert in, makeup artistry or in, fitness or in, fashion, which, is a technical skill, I think, in some ways. So yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's just so cool to think about that as being, a platform for empowering these individuals who are experts in their field. It's super cool.
Absolutely.
And separately, I was thinking about this as I was thinking about Pvolve, and I'm sure you guys are thinking about this too, but that kind of that injury angle is a super interesting one.
Yeah.
And where it connects for me is I actually started, so I had growing up, I played football and had, tore up my body, including my knees very specifically. So I had an ACL cadaver graft in my left, meniscus in my left and my right. So 3 surgeries, right? And so, of course, my knees don't feel great now that I'm in my mid 30s. And like, oh, my wife's mother was like, oh, you need to get Hokas, right? Like Hokas are great. They're specifically designed for people that have, potential injuries or knee injuries or whatever. And so as I was looking at Pvolve, obviously it's targeted, I think, generally towards women. But I think that there's just such a broad applicability to this, like, do training that isn't going to put additional pressure on your body or that is going to be better for people that have had historical injuries. I just think it's such a cool concept and not something that other people really push generally, I feel.
100%. You absolutely nailed that, and I didn't send any of that to you. It's kind of incredible. So when you think about our market fit and where we are, right? So there is a massive market of people who are looking for, let's just say, cardio fitness. I know that on average, that gets like 160 million searches, right? Which is
Wow.
pretty big.
Yeah.
And you think about that's pretty traditional fitness. when you look at how many people are searching for ways to live with or deal with pain, it's over 1.1 billion.
Okay,
So,
there you go.
when we brought our methodology to market and, we were lean, we're still, I'm a lean marketer by trade. So, when we launched, we were really focused on listening to our customers because we're kind of your cake and eat it too. You are going to absolutely see body transformation with Pvolve, which is wonderful. But what we can promise is that you are also not going to get hurt, right? And instead of breaking your body down, we are teaching you how to strengthen your body and making it at the best performance level possible. So where our market fit is people who are let down or don't find a space in traditional vanity fitness, if that makes any sense. That means you are going to see the results. If you want to, you want stronger abs with us, you want a lifted butt with us, you're going to get that. But you're also going to get, a stronger lower back, a stronger core that, so many people that are training with our on-demand platform are dealing with lower back pain. We're in a lower back pain study right now with the University of Minnesota. So we're really proud of that. We know that fitness is a very saturated category in the vanity-driven aspect. And we believe that we're coming to market and are serving a massive gap that is almost unmeasurable of people that are dealing either with a previous injury like you or a more educated consumer that is growing up now who has seen what their parents have gone through and are doing their best to never go into rehab. We call that prehab, right? And those are very smart, educated consumers who do not want to have knee or hip surgery in their 40s, 50s, or 60s.
Yeah, 100%. Unfortunately, I really loved running for a minute, and my knees were like, yeah, that's not going to be an option, right?
Yeah.
So, well, let's take a step back just in terms of your career, right? So I think part of the goal of this podcast is to understand what's happening in your company, and part of it's for people that, want to be in your role eventually, right? Like to see the path that you took there. So early in your career, you kind of spent your time moving up the ladder in the agency and kind of on the marketing side for pharmaceutical industry. What were some of the lessons that you drew from that period in life? Like, what were some of the things that you think, you're like, yeah, I really took that lesson with me and have been able to apply it today?
I think I was exceptionally lucky when I was in the agency world, right? So I graduated with a communications and journalism background, so went right into international PR. Public relations and in Chicago, and was kind of bouncing around. And at the time, Leo Burnett, one of the largest advertising agencies at the time, was kind of really ahead of this integrated approach. And they were going around secretly and kind of plucking people out of PR firms and dropping them in the middle of the advertising space. And I was one of them. And it was really early in my career. I think I was 2 years out of college. And that's when I really started to see, okay, the industry right now looks at PR over here and marketing and advertising over here, because this was before social even came to market. And there's an approach where we're gonna, from an agency perspective, get more client work if we come in with an integrated approach. And that was really my first entree into marketing, and I loved it. And from there I went to Euro RSCG. But I always kind of pinged back and forth in the agency world between marketing and advertising firms and PR firms because I loved them both. And I saw the power of them both. And Burnett was really the only one that was like trying to make them work together. So if you see my like LinkedIn resume, it's like, okay, she's at a PR firm, then she's at an advertising firm, then she's back at a PR firm, and she's at an advertising firm, because it was something in there clicked that I wanted to do both. And I saw the power of engagement and having really PR and communication being coupled with marketing, and this was before performance marketing, this was before social. And so when I look back at that, I kept getting poached at different firms, and, a lot of people would tell you, don't jump, don't be such a jumper. And if you watch my LinkedIn, I went every 2 years. Every time I got poached, I went when I was younger.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't regret any of that because I got to see so many different clients and work inside so many different industry sectors that it really allowed me to become very well-rounded. So I'm an Ohio University grad, and I speak there a lot. And what I always tell people is, if you're starting off in the agency realm, like that's going to be your track, jump.
Yeah.
Because first of all, that's how you're going to make money in agency, especially early on. And you really want that breadth of clients and to see where you felt, where your passion is and where you start to excel. And mine was, early on was in healthcare, which was great. So I was working at Fleischmann Hilliard, and TAP Pharmaceuticals was my largest client. And, they came knocking one day and said, look, we could just continue to pay your agency, or we could just hire you. And
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was super cool. It was terrifying because, as an agency person, you think of going to the client side as the dark side, and I was super worried about that. And I was very young, and I went in-house to a phenomenal, $4 billion pharmaceutical company at the time. And my immediate boss, about 6 months after I was there, left the company. And there was this huge spot for the head of public affairs, which entailed all of communications, crisis comm, governance, and then also working hand in hand with marketing on all of the claims and everything like that. And they came to me and said, we're going to do this big international search. Don't worry, we're going to get somebody in here. And I said, you got to give me a shot. I know I'm young, but I can do this. And I would say the biggest learning I had from that is they kind of laughed, right? I think it was 27. And the youngest person on the pharmaceutical executive team at that point was, I think, 46. And they were like, Amy, that's nuts. And I'm like, well, let me do the job with this title and this pay for 6 months. And at the end of 6 months, if you want to hire somebody over me, go ahead. And I think it was 4 months and they gave me the full-time job, which was amazing.
That's awesome. And that's that is a scenario that a lot of people find themselves in, right? Where it's like, hey, we know that, I know that when I was at my first company, right, I was young as well. I was 23 or so.
Yeah.
And I was the number one salesperson. I was training everybody, teaching everybody, blah, blah, blah. And then, they wanted to hire somebody to manage the team. And it was guys, why wouldn't it be me? That doesn't make any sense. And they ended up hiring somebody above me. And I was time to go. Right.
Yeah, I'm going to
And I think that's how you, and I think that's how you lose a lot of really good people. But
I agree.
There's definitely a balance, right? Because I think when we first started our company, I think leaned into that a little too much. And then we put people in a position where they just weren't we just had we just didn't have enough experience, frankly.
Well, and I think when I look back, what I didn't know at the time, Conor, is the smartest thing I did was say 6 months, right? Because I had to learn what that role entailed. And I mean, it was I was back in college, starting at 6 o'clock at night, I would have textbooks up learning about the disease states that we were serving and everything. I worked tirelessly to get that job. To your point, it's not like I would ever give anybody the advice of, oh my God, go for a vice president role at 22, but hindsight's 2020. But the best thing I did was make it that 6 month marker. I wasn't I want this job now or I'm leaving, because I knew I was young and inexperienced. But I worked hard and I got there. And that was really, becoming that level of an executive at a young age was really a platform for me that sparked everything that I am today. It opened so many doors for me because here I was, an executive member at a $1 billion global pharmaceutical company. So when we decided to move back to Ohio for family reasons, it really opened the door to give me opportunities that I don't think I would have had if I hadn't really secured that executive level position.
Yeah, I mean, there's it's a big thing, right? I think people underestimate it, but what tends to happen is if you can get accelerated fairly early in your career, then people look at you oh, wow, they're ahead of where they should be. They must be doing really well, right? And I think that that kind of rolls downhill pretty quickly. Obviously, you can, I think the famous one is like Colonel Sanders started KFC when he was like 50 years old, right? Like, you can start whenever you want, but it is definitely an advantage early on if you can get it.
Yeah.
So then you kind of jumped to the nonprofit sector, which was a mix, right? You were at a VC, which technically is a nonprofit, but was, investing.
Well, it was, it was, that truly did not feel like a nonprofit, but yes.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't look like a nonprofit either. But yeah, tell me about that period, kind of,
Sure.
leading up to Pvolve.
So when I came back to Ohio, I did some international consulting again and just realized, look, the reason I came back to Ohio was family. And if I was just going to be a road warrior and continue to be traveling all over the country, there was no point in leaving Chicago. And so I, through the consulting firms that I was doing in Cleveland, I was going to be put on a board of one of the largest nonprofits in the city, which is at the time the Centers for Families and Children. And they were going through a 3-way merger that was going to position them as one of the largest nonprofits in the state. And
Wow.
I became kind of close with the CEO. She came to me and said, look, I need a business person. I need somebody to come in to help me manage this merger, rebrand the entire organization, which ended up being 17 different locations. And I mean, it was massive. And I had never been a part of nonprofit, but I was also new back to Ohio and Cleveland. And I was like, well, this is probably a really good way to get embedded in the community, because this is where we're going to live probably for most of my life. So I took that job on. That was about a 3-year project from end to end. We worked alongside with KPMG for the M&A, and I have a lot of M&A background. And it was actually one of the most challenging projects I've ever done, because nonprofits they don't have budgets. So it's not like I had a team. I was a one-person show that was doing the comms, the marketing, the branding, all of the training, and all of the M&A communication as well. So it was kind of like going from this really high-level executive position down to the ground floor and kind of relearning the execution side all over again, which I loved. And that was right around the time that Jumpstart reached out, which is, the venture firm in Cleveland. And when I was thinking about my career arc, I mean, it was very intentional, right? I had done the agency life. I had gone in-house to a $4 billion pharmaceutical. I had then done strategic nonprofit, work. And I was like, what's left for me and where I want to go is venture, right? If I eventually want to get equity, be a part of this startup world, potentially create generational wealth, this is the way to do it instead of just jumping into startup. So I went in on the venture side, was the head of marketing and a senior partner there, which meant that I did everything from weighing into the investments that we were going to make when there was a heavy, marketing component, to advising some of those companies from a marketing perspective, and then also the head of marketing for Jumpstart, which was amazing. It was probably to date the best job I've ever had, just from like a learning standpoint. I learned so much about equity, venture capital, the startup world. And so then I left and went to one of the startups that we invested in fintech. And that was my first entry into startup.
Gotcha. Okay.
But not to complicate things, at that time I was also helping start Pvolve. So I'm one of the 4 founding business executives that helped start it from a consulting level. So I had that going on, because when you're at a venture capital firm, there's no non-competes. They want you to eventually go into the startup world. So I kind of had my hands in both. Was a part of this fintech startup that was almost like a Venmo competitor, was in Portugal all the time. That's where our entire dev team was. And,
oh, wow.
And just kind of slowly was watching P.volve out of the corner of my eye, something that like I was a part of from the beginning that I loved. And I was like, no way, man, I got to go back there. That's where I belong. And I went back in 2018 full time. So I was there from the beginning at 2017 from a consulting standpoint, and then became a full-time team member in 2018 as the head of marketing.
Yeah, I have some questions for you about kind of offshore dev teams, just because we haven't done it. I
Yeah.
hear there are some challenges,
It's tough.
But they're 3-to-1, 3-to-1 ratio in
Look,
terms of just price, right?
financially, 100% all the way. It makes sense.
Yeah,
Having your right head of product, with you in your office and your product managers, I think is the most important component of that. They have to be with you, in my opinion. That's what makes the offshore work. If you have a lead product and your product managers are offshore, you can lose touch with everything very quickly.
yeah, that makes sense. That had to have helped too. I mean, although P.volve obviously is kind of fitness focused, there's a big tech aspect to it, right?
Yep.
In terms of just the way that you deliver the information, the content, etc. So, had to have helped there. I mean, in terms of P.volve specifically, it seems like, just kind of looking at your background, that this really kind of embodied a lot of the values that you think are important. Because, I mean, you did the nonprofit stint, but I think you had like 5 or 6 nonprofits that you're working with, on your LinkedIn specifically.
Yeah.
Is that
Just
what
from a pro
motivated
bono
you? Or
standpoint, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, look, healthcare caught my eye early. In my career, I
Yep.
obviously was
Yep.
at pharmaceutical. It was, you know, I would be crazy if I said I didn't see the opportunity that I believed. I knew in my 20s that healthcare was the sector that was going to continue to grow astronomically. So I've
Yep.
always wanted to stay in healthcare. When I met our co-founder, Rachel Katzman, who, was really pivotal in bringing this company to market, she changed my entire perception on like what fitness was. So she was a young girl looking for a methodology that was going to work for her, tried every spin class, every workout in New York, but was diagnosed with scoliosis and was dealing with intense pain, and then was introduced to functional fitness and functional movement and really understanding her body and what it was telling her. And that changed her whole trajectory of life. She no longer lives with pain. And so when she was starting to tell me that, I realized I had pain. We all have pain. You have pain, Conor, right? And we just don't always identify that we have forms of pain or chronic pain. And, I didn't realize how much I was breaking my body down in what I was doing. So she was really pivotal in making me understand how important it should be for me, but then also, being able to see what that meant for market opportunity. It was massive. And if you know her, she's going to be a part of a $1 billion brand. And I wanted to be on that rocket ship with her.
Yeah, it's really wild to think about how ambitious that launch plan is. Doing any one of the 3, proprietary equipment, virtual, virtual programs, global programs, and studio space are each individually a business, right? So you're launching 3 businesses simultaneously, and you have to make sure that they're all in harmony, which is not easy to do either. So that's I'm glad you were the one that had to figure that out, or your team was the one that had to figure that out. It was not. Yeah. I'm glad that's not my business. That sounds really hard.
I think it comes from, it came from an exceptionally ambitious co-founder who knew. Yep. I think Rachel always knew the power of this methodology, and she was like, look, we can go at a snail's pace or we can go. And then, she had a few of us as consultants that had launched businesses before or worked with companies. Our president was Julie Cartwright was from Lionsgate and had managed that fitness portfolio. So, I had worked with VCs and saw how they scaled, so how the startup scaled. So I think we kind of all came in and knew that this was the right way to go. It could kill us in our first year, but this was the right way to go.
So, last question, and then we'll get into a couple fun kind of end of show questions.
Oh boy.
So, obviously this wouldn't be a podcast from Tribe if we didn't talk about influencers. So, what has been your approach to working with influencers more recently? And again, what have you found that works and doesn't work? Would love to hear about that a little bit.
Yeah, influencers have been a part of our company since day one, to be honest. Our co-founder, that brought our method through Stephen Pastorino. He had been working with models from the very beginning. He kind of caught his break training Victoria's Secret models early on, and that kind of word of mouth spread really kind of helped launch us in New York, hands down. The power of that was amazing. So, we've always had an influencer side to us. Where we have gone over the years is we refuse to work with any type of influencer that is not a believer in our methodology. Right. So what we do not do is we do not randomly pay people to just say that they were doing Pvolve. And we've gotten better and we've gotten stronger. You can try. Yes, this is your space. So you know what this means. But we are a mission-driven company, right? And we believe we are going to change the fitness industry, turn it on its head for exactly what we've talked about for this past hour. About understanding your body, knowing your body, and being able to make it stronger and make pain less of an obstacle in people's lives. And if we just paid young, beautiful models to say that they did P.volve, that's going to backfire in a major way. So we believe in building relationships. Our influencer marketing team is top notch, and they have to do private trainings. We have to talk to them. They have to be able to speak and understand about our brands. And we have relationships with our influencers. These are not people that it's just transactional. They are in our studios in LA and in New York. They're reaching out to us when they're launching companies because we're supporters, because they believe in our methodology. So we're really proud of that. We've worked with some massive names. Naomi Campbell did a spot with us on Instagram Live during the pandemic. We've trained with, Kate Bosworth, the Iskra Lawrences of the world. We've been really, I think, particular in who we want to work with. We want to work with people that are positive influencers in the world that, we have to look at what their platform speaks to as well. So yeah, you could have, 15 million followers, but you could have a message that's not great, that doesn't align with what we want, and we're not going to go there. And we're proud of that. We've walked away from a lot of major names and major opportunities that could have probably spiked our growth at 3 times the rate, and we just collectively said we're not going to do it. So we're proud of that. We're really proud of that.
It's definitely the approach that we've seen work consistently over time. So I think that you can have kind of short-term spikes here and there, but I think the only way that you build significant long-term value from people is when they are active supporters of the brand and they do authentically believe in the mission, and they're going to be supportive of that mission for a really long time, not just because they got paid to post about some new campaign you're launching next month. So Absolutely. Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do a couple fun end of show questions. So first, you're a big fan of podcasts. Give me your top 3 podcasts that you think people should listen to, or you can do top 1. Your call.
Oh, that's so tough because I'm kind of like, I listen to a ton of podcasts. So do you? So I'm trying to think. I would say my top 3. So I'm a big Pivot fan. I don't know if you've ever heard of Pivot with Kara Swisher.
Kara Swisher, yep.
Yeah, and Scott Galloway. I'm a huge fan of that. I'm a big daily, the New York Times Daily. I listen to that every morning as I'm like waking up, just to kind of have a sense of what's going on in the world. Armchair Expert with Dak Shepard. It's a classic. Really, really high up there for me. I love CMO Moves. I like kind of popping in and out of that one a little bit. And then the rest of mine are like, I'm a true crime junkie. So I listen to all the true crime ones, like when Dirty John came out and, all of that. Like I was just all over those. But yeah, I would say my Pivot is massive. Pivot, has that intersection of marketing, of technology, of regulation, of all of that. It really helps me kind of stay ahead of, even like the data and privacy issues that we're facing with Facebook and iOS 14.5 right now. I learned a lot of that way before it started becoming news because of that podcast. Same with Sway, which is Kara Swisher's other podcast that I'm a big fan of. She kind of goes deep into tech and asking the really, really hard questions there of tech founders, so from Elon Musk to what's going on at Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat and all of that. And so those really kind of help me stay ahead of the market.
Yeah, no, those are great. I'm trying to remember, I got into one. It was really interesting. I'm on the small town murder side. It's like, I think it's called like Small Town Murder or something. Have you heard about this one?
No, have you heard of Shit Town? Is that what you're referring to?
Oh, I've listened to Shit Town for sure. That one's a great one. From
because that's small town, right?
Gimlet. Yeah. No, this one, it's gotten a really big audience, and basically what it does, I can't remember the name of it. I wish I could remember. People are gonna be upset. But it's gotten this really cult following. And basically what they do is they find real murders that happen. And like they typically happen in very small towns. And then they just dive into it like really, really deeply. Yeah. And it's built a huge cult following. I got into that for a minute. But I'm not a huge... Go ahead.
A couple years ago, I was like a diehard My Favorite Murder fan.
Yes.
And then I kind of listened to so many of them. I was absolutely convinced somebody was going to like murder me walking down the street, and I had to kind of take a step back. So
you have to be careful with what you consume. You have to be careful with what you consume. It impacts, like, I remember going into an election cycle, like the first Trump election cycle. It was just so, or maybe it was the last one. It was just so, I had so much negativity on Twitter. And it was just like affecting my day-to-day life. I was like, I can't be on Twitter anymore because I'm just so angry all the time. And so
I took a step back from Twitter. I took a big step back from Twitter. I really haven't re-engaged in it in a while, which like here and there maybe a little bit. And I was very active on Twitter. It's probably was the most engaged I was for the past 10 years. But I did the same thing. I think a lot of the world did.
Yeah. Okay, last one. So if I were to sign up for Pvolve, what should be the first class and maybe even the first instructor I should try out?
Oh, that is tough. Okay, so I would tell you if you are because I love all of our workouts, but if you're new to Pvolve, the number one thing you should do is a live virtual class. Right. And here's where I think we're pretty amazing as an organization, because we believe that, especially with where we ended up with the pandemic, we know that there were gym rats out there, right, that were really struggling. They weren't just somebody that couldn't find a space to work out in their home. They were people that were motivated by community members and by that almost kind of gamification, competitive nature of like being in a studio, and you got to show up for somebody you say you're going to show up for. So we launched our live virtual, and then we also included that into our monthly subscription cost, right? So that used to be like $160, and now you get for $19.99 a month with us. You can stream online, demand anytime, anywhere you want, but you can also take unlimited live virtual classes. And I think starting with a live virtual class is amazing because they can actually give you some pointers in there if you're willing to have your camera on, which you don't have to. But our methodology is not intuitive. We're kind of the antithesis of traditional vanity workouts. So it takes a minute to understand our methodology and how your body should be feeling and doing it. So I would tell you to go into our live virtual class.
Okay.
And our trainer, like, that's the hardest question for me because I'm obsessed with every single trainer we have. Yes, I'm obsessed with our trainers. But I would tell you, for you, Conor, you're out in LA. I would tell you Danny Coleman. Jump into one of her live virtual, or go to the studio and take it with her, and I think you'll be blown away.
There you go. Awesome. Thanks so much, Amy. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot today, and super impressive what you guys have accomplished. Excited to watch you guys continue to grow. And thanks for taking out the time.
No, thank you. It was great.
Awesome. All right. Bye, Amy.
Bye.
Hit subscribe now. Earned by Tribe Dynamics. Tribe Dynamics unlocks your social media influencer community. Our platform not only tracks and measures your best influencer relationships, but discovers new influencers to grow your business through earned media. Get started with a demo today at tribedynamics.com. tribedynamics.com.